Welcome back as we continue with our counting backwards through the years, picking up where we left off and diving deep to see just how many hurricanes and years have been Doppler weaponized in this world of hot water that we're in today. – 2001. 9/11. Aaron.
What's happening with weather conditions around the nation? We start with the high temperatures for today. It is going to be a warm one in the south, but these temperatures are pretty much seasonable for most of the nation. 70s in the upper Midwest. We'll see some 80s throughout much of the U.S. Desert Southwest, of course, over 100 degrees again. Take a look at the highlights for today. New York City, beautiful day here. 80 degrees today. St. Louis, 83. Albuquerque, you're looking at 87. San Diego, a pleasant 74. Where will we see rain? We'll see some scattered showers in portions of the west. Most of the west will be dry. Look for possible flooding in southern Texas, central and southern Florida, where the rain will be heavy. That's a look at what's happening with the weather around the nation. Now, here's what's happening in your neighborhood.
Good morning. Certainly no rain here. Nothing but dry skies. Next chance for rain not even until Thursday afternoon with a slight chance of a shower. Today and tomorrow mostly sunny, highs in the upper 70s and low 80s. Thursday could see a slight chance of a shower and then smooth sailing once again.
All right, thank you, Marta. 67 degrees. We've warmed up 3 in the last hour, but it's still cooler than it was yesterday. Yesterday was 75. Northwest wind at 9. They will remain out of the northwest and north throughout the day today and tomorrow. That means humidity level, look at this, 73%. It was up to about 88% early this morning, so that's going to continue to fall. Gorgeous weather today and for the next several days. Rain yesterday afternoon, now well offshore, just a little bit making its way off the Outer Banks. No rain today or tomorrow. Cloud cover, too, with that cold front is making its way offshore, too. So we're going to have just a beautiful day today. This is a real cold front, folks. That means it's a boundary line of the very cool, dry air, and it is going to make its way well offshore, help to push Hurricane Aaron up to the north. It's not going to affect us at all, but high pressure. And this is just the beginning because another cold front moves in Thursday night. Could trigger a round of shower activity, but drops the temperatures even more. Just gorgeous for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Low 70s. The average high is 82. We're not going to have it for about the next 5 to 7 days. Michael, over.
The country, kids, on this Tuesday, the night of the Latin Grammys. Sunny skies down through Texas, all the way from the bottom of Texas to the top of North Dakota. Little rain to the right of North Dakota. Parts of North Dakota may see a little rain. To the west of the country, no problem. To the east in the country, no problems except down in Florida, little rain. Northeast, we'll see little rough seas along the New England coastline from that hurricane that's going away. Miles and miles of sunshine. Miles Davis. We're going to put Miles out there today. Nice as it can be across the Northeast. Rough seas still from the chop from that hurricane, but other than that, it's kind of quiet around the country. We like quiet. It's quiet. It's too quiet. That's a quick look at the national forecast. Here's an early look at your weather.
Hi, everybody. I'm Hillary Howard. It is beautiful outside. Perfect September day with lots of sunshine. Oh, would you look at Washington, huh? I'm going outside today. Anyway, we're going to have a pretty day. Temperatures will be 77 to 82 degrees. Obviously, in the higher elevations, it'll be just a little cooler. And then same thing tonight. Tonight, we'll see a wide disparity in terms of temperatures. 48 in the higher elevations, 60 down along the water. 7-day outlook looks sunny and dry, getting up to 81 today.
Here. See, that's what it would look like. Much better. Let's check your weather, see what's going on. For today, we've got a lot of cool weather in the northern states. We've got some hot weather continuing in the southwest and 80s as you get into the southeast with a lot of rain, up to 7 inches of rain in parts of Florida. Partly sunny in the Pacific Northwest. Seattle today, sunshine and 75. Sunny in the northeast and low humidity. Speaking of hair, what's the deal here?
Charles Worthington's big hair, girl.
Well, there you go. You certainly are. That's what's going on around the country. Here's what's happening in your neck of the woods.
Well, we've had a fresh, cool, dry air mass move in overnight. Good morning. I'm meteorologist Tom Kieran. We're up to 67 degrees here in Northwest and comfortably dry with a nice breeze coming in about 5 to 10 this morning. It may get a little gusty this afternoon, maybe 10 to 20 miles an hour with bright sunshine, highs reaching the low 80s. And we've got a cool evening on tap tonight. Ought to be widespread 50s for lows. And during the day tomorrow, the upper 70s for highs. Then Thursday, partly sunny. Could have a passing shower Thursday evening. Otherwise, dry weather all the way into the weekend.
If you're ordered to evacuate, the one piece of advice, evacuate early. Do not wait until the last minute and risk getting stuck in gridlock. This is John Zarella reporting live from Isla Mirada in the Florida Keys.
All right, thank you very much, John Zarella. Wow. Great pictures there to illustrate the power of the storm. We remind you, tune in Sunday for a special hurricane report when the big one hits. Sunday, 10 p.m. Eastern Time on CNN Presents.
All right, but surely Dave Hannon's looking out on the horizon, seeing if there's any hurricane action out there. What's it looking like, Dave?
There is indeed hurricane action today. Fortunately, though, this big hurricane, Aaron, is going to move away from the U.S. Winds at one point yesterday up to 120 miles per hour. You see the eye of Hurricane Aaron, and look how close it is to the coast. The thing that's going to happen, though, is this frontal system moving off the east coast is going to pick up the hurricane and begin to move it a little bit farther off towards the east. In fact, it is now moving north. It was moving northwest yesterday, so that turn has already begun. Winds still pretty strong, though, 90 miles per hour sustained. It is forecast to continue, though, as we said, though, to push away from land. In fact, not expected to affect the Canadian Maritimes either, moving into the North Atlantic. That's what we're expecting with that storm.
Now we'll come back and talk about the weather. We need to talk about the weather, right? Someone thought it was a nice, beautiful day. Well, it was right directly above Manhattan, but not a few miles off the East Coast. See, it's as nice as can be. Here's Geraldo Rivera, who's chased out
people ask me
hurricanes for
why
40
I
years.
have been so attracted over the years to hurricane coverage, but there's risk involved. There is, the peril of not knowing what's going to happen, that adventure, and it's pitting yourself against an enemy. It's like war, only no one is shooting at you specifically. That's what the allure. But there is an area storm that I am not, the juices don't flow, and you look and check it out.
Look at that. Remember that? When that I watched that live.
And maybe a store on YouTube. You got to get up close and personal. And
this was Hurricane Ike, I think.
That was recent. That was wasn't this Rita?
You would know.
You know what I think it was, Rita? Rita in Galveston, Texas. Yeah, Galveston. And obviously Katrina before that changed so many of our histories. It was so traumatic. And it's one funny thing I think of if only a hurricane had come on 9/11. Remember, they didn't know how to use instruments, the terrorists. They took off in Boston, and they literally, after they took over the aircraft, they steered by line of sight. And it was that crystal clear September day. Sure was. Beautiful. And if it were only one of these weather days, history would have been rewritten. And I think about that a lot now, and especially this time of year. So we're the peak of hurricane season.
Yeah, you're celebrating 40 years?
40 years, imagine that.
40 years.
Longevity has its own revenge. I've outlived like 15 generations of TV critics. Yeah. They all predicted I'd be done in a couple of weeks.
Well, do you still get...
Everyone has those stories, right?
Oh, yeah.
This was just 2 years ago. I think this is Batter's Dead. No, it doesn't seem to advance. I'm going to click advance. This seems to be out of batteries or something.
Well, I don't know about that. Here again, you're asking us to deal with a fact I'm not aware of. I never heard about flames or fumes. I mean, fumes coming out of a building. I'll tell you what, first of all, let me go to Steve in Florida. Steve in Florida, you're on the air. Go ahead, please, with Dr. Judy Wood.
Hi, Joy. Thank you for taking my call. Am I loud and clear?
Yeah, you are. Go ahead.
Judy, you have misrepresented the facts concerning Hurricane Aaron. I live here in hurricane country, Florida. I track all the hurricanes. Aaron hit Corpus Christi, Texas, 15 August 2007. Your opinion concerning 911 are not consistent with the facts provided on 911 ripple effect, last man out, Richard Gage's blueprint for truth, loose change final cut, Zero, an investigation into 911, and many other video documentaries. I don't know what planet you've come from.
Okay. I guess he's gone. I don't know what happened to Steve.
As for Hurricane Aaron, they did not retire that name. It has been used several times. It was the first hurricane, I believe, of the 2001 hurricane season.
All right. Let me go back to George. George.
One funny thing I think of if only a hurricane had come on 9/11. And it was that crystal clear September day. Sure was. Beautiful. And if it were only one of these weather days, history would have been rewritten. And I think about that a lot.
This is what was shown on television that morning of 9/11. This is where the hurricane was at that moment. See anything missing? This is where the hurricane was, here. The satellite, the National Hurricane Center satellite images. That's Geraldo from that time. The rest is from 9/11. Yeah, Geraldo apparently didn't know there was a hurricane that day, and Joey Moore, a flight attendant on 9/11 who flew out of Boston's Logan Airport just before the fatal flight that left, did not know there was a hurricane either until he saw it on my website.
But why didn't they mention it?
That's the question. It begs the question, too.
Yeah.
Because you know how much they like to milk those for all they can get. They love to report on hurricanes.
But do you say that they were manipulating reports?
I'm not saying anything. I'm just noticing if people didn't know there was a hurricane coming and you saw it was headed straight for New York, if it hadn't turned around when it did, Manhattan would have been flooded. And how fast can you evacuate that many people from Manhattan? Can you afford that risk unless you absolutely know there's no chance? Unless you know, how would you know? Right.
Was it reported on any other media?
It does show up in the National Hurricane Center's, text forecasts, but they were very played down. They weren't shown on the media. People were not aware that there was a hurricane there. Oh, they took the ships out to sea because they knew that the hurricane was coming. They may have looked into the National Hurricane Center's reports, but it was not something that was heavily publicized. It wasn't zero publicity on it, but it was very underreported.
I'm confused here.
The hurricane for 4 days was going in a straight line. And then on the morning of 9/11, it stopped, turned around, and that afternoon it started heading out of town.
So you think that was artificially done?
I'm just reporting what the evidence is. I don't want to guess, but I can say that if they didn't know it for 100% sure that it was going to turn around, if there's any question, why weren't people told to evacuate? Just in case.
Oh, because the people at the tower were told to evacuate because of the hurricane?
No. Nobody was told to evacuate because of the hurricane. That's the puzzle, that nobody was really told about the hurricane being there. It just happened to be there and then turned around and left quietly. We're told this is nice, wonderful September day. But it could have been used. National Hurricane Center. I've got all of the references in my book. And this is, that satellite image of the hurricane is from the National Hurricane Center. You can download it yourself.
I'm just saying that I think it would help your presentation. Excuse me, drjudywood.com/articles/Erin. You'll find 5 pages of multiply referenced data from the UK Meteorological Office, from the Canadian Hurricane Data Centre, from the US Hurricane Data Centre, and other sources. And I've got more if you want to write to me, I'll send you other stuff.
We'll take questions. We'll let you get through your...
The clicker doesn't work.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's let Dr. Judy Wood get through her presentation. We've got plenty of time for questions afterwards. Thank you so much.
So let's also look at some other information. Now, the hurricane was going to turn around at some point. They thought on day 1 it was going to turn around because it was a high-pressure system moving across the U.S., but then didn't. Well, maybe on day 2 it didn't. Maybe on day 3 it didn't. Maybe on day 4. Thank goodness it did. They had predicted it was going to turn around all this time, but did they really know when? If they didn't know, they ran out of room. So here we have the high-pressure system moving in from the Midwest, and it's increasing, while the hurricane, which is a low-pressure system, is moving in from the Atlantic. And guess where they met and when? 10 a.m. on the morning of 9/11. They were superimposed at that area, so you have 2 counter-rotating systems, curiously. And interesting drop with the humidity. But let's look at this magnetometer information. This is the Earth's magnetic field from the ground, not from satellite, but from the ground. In Alaska, there's 6 different measurements. Each of the events on 9/11 are with a vertical bar. The first one is WTC1 getting an airplane-shaped hole, then WTC2, then WTC2 goes poof, WTC1 goes poof, and then later Building 7 goes poof. I say goes poof, they didn't collapse. They turned to dust. So it's interesting, it's pretty much at steady state and something different happens here. There was a solar storm approaching, but it didn't get to that point until a day later. So there's something else going on here. A closer look, about 20 minutes before WTC1 got its hole, that's the North Tower, they started wandering off of their average value. And as soon as WTC1 got its hole, it reverses direction. As soon as WTC2 gets its hole, it goes horizontally. It's like one reversed the other one. Maybe coincidence? And then when WTC2 goes poof, they start going downhill, but when WTC1 goes away, it really drops off the cliff, and then things are all haywire all afternoon until WTC7 meets its demise. The Earth's magnetic field, as recorded at 6 different stations. Again, here's where they start wandering down. There's actually 3 different measurements for when the North Tower got its hole. The 9/11 Commission report, the Palisades seismographic station, and the NIST report. I can tell you which one's right, based on where the turnaround happens. And see how these go horizontally after Building 2 gets its hole. These are the 6 different recording stations. It's just, you know, a curious set of data.
Was the hurricane early? Was it meant to arrive the day after the events to really mess things up even more, but failed to arrive on time? I think that might actually betray an involvement in the events and raise too many flags? Why wouldn't they have warned New York City about a hurricane that was coming? That would show some sort of further collusion or conspiracy. So I would be surprised that they would plan a hurricane for the day after a terrorist attack. That would just be too much attention. Or was it intended for secondary use as an energy fuel source for the directed energy employed on 9/11, along with the explosives, of course, and whatever other elements were put into place to make sure the show was successful and grand?
Again, when you're looking at that, if you want to talk about that for just a second, why were you drawing the comparison between Hurricane Wilma and the energy signature of what was happening there that day? What's going on?
Well, we started out talking about hurricanes, and
Yes.
When I got to looking at the dust and how the dust went up, and that was another comment that Michael Ober had made, is that he thought he was inside somewhere, and some said, no, you're outside. It's just it's dark out. 100% of the sunlight was blocked out by this dust that went up. For I don't know, a half hour afterwards, it was up and blocking out the sunlight. And so I decided to look to see where it went when it went up. And I looked at some weather satellite pictures, thinking I could get a better look at this dust going up. And what's this? This hurricane.
Yeah.
That was the first time I saw the hurricane. And like, how weird that we weren't told about this. I don't remember anything about a hurricane. And it was a Category 3, and it was headed right to New York City for 4 days straight, straight line. I wonder what hurricanes can do. So I started looking into that. And they're like a giant Tesla coil, and they produce a static field around them, and that interferes with other types of signals. And, people who have arthritis or other people often talk about feeling the weather coming.
Mm-hmm.
They can feel that field effect ahead of the storm. The same with the reason why birds leave town or spiders pack up their webs. They sense the storm coming because they feel that field effect.
Mm-hmm.
And also in hurricanes, you have cars sitting on fences. And hurricanes are a big torsion field. And a smaller, quicker acting one is like a tornado. So let's look at those too. We remember seeing tornadoes supposedly lifting up houses, putting them on someplace, or putting a car on a telephone pole. But the car isn't damaged. It wasn't like it got tumbled around.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of evidence, like this spring, that big Joplin tornado, there's this video of these people locked in a cooler, or, ran to the cooler in the convenience store for safety. And you hear, everybody screaming when the tornado was tearing the place up, but you didn't hear it whoosh through, so it didn't tear the walls off of the cooler. But after it was done with, everyone's saying, well, is that you under me? Is that your leg on top of me? So obviously the people have been jostled around. And you also saw the camera flying around.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't a moving wind tunnel through that cooler they're in. But they were levitated and tumbled around.
Now, this has to be the result of some kind of interference with electromagnetic fields or charge, or I'm not a scientist, but this is dealing with electromagnetism, isn't it?
Right. It turns out electricity, magnetism, and gravity all interact. So
Okay.
it's possible to affect gravity with magnetism. And as I think we all had the experience as youngsters, getting a nail and wrapping a wire coil around it and stick it in a 9-volt battery, and it turns the magnet into, turns the electricity into a magnet.
Mm-hmm.
The nail becomes a magnet. Also, we learned that if you move a conductor through a magnetic field, you get electricity, which is how Nikola Tesla, he discovered alternating current and applied it to harnessing the energy from the Niagara Falls power plant.
Mm-hmm.
So we can turn electricity into magnetism. We can turn magnetism into electricity. But we can also affect gravity with magnetism.
So there, just from what we're talking about so far, there had to be some kind of electromagnetics in play. And you were talking about tornadoes and how they have this effect where they can pick things up without harming them through this gravitational effect and land them or set them down somewhere. But you don't have dustification with tornadoes. I mean, there's more than that at play here.
Right. You sometimes do, but or destruction. And that's just when it's randomly kind of oriented. And there are aspects of the WTC complex that reminded me of tornadoes.
How so?
Building 4, the main body of Building 4 disappeared, turned into dust, went away, and just left the north wing standing, or most of the north wing standing, as though it was cut off with an X-Acto knife. And one story below ground in that area, you see some people walking through the mall. And then another story below that, in the parking garage area, it looks totally unaffected.
Yes, totally unaffected.
As though it happened from the ground up. You know, a few little punch-throughs the ground here and there. But where did the main body of Building 4 go? And it reminded me so much of an experience I had as a child going through Topeka, Kansas, right after that horrendous tornado that went through. You could look through this into this apartment building that had been sliced in two. There was a made bed in there with magazines still on the bed, books on the dresser, and clothes hanging in the closet that weren't messed up.
Yes, and your book is riddled with these kinds of surreal photographs. There are photographs of cars in which the back half of the car looks fine. A police car, for example, half of the lights are undamaged. The rest of the car is completely toasted.
Right, even to the point of eating out the metal. You know they don't drive old junkers around.
Right. The metal is eaten out, and yet the other half of the car is totally intact.
Like it just came off the showroom floor.
Exactly. I mean, it doesn't even have scratches on the paint, it looks like.
Plastic police lights on the top on one side look untouched, and they would melt pretty easily.
So here we have the National Hurricane Center's list of storms by year. Unfortunately, it only goes back to 1995, but it does have 2001, and we do have Aaron. See how many hurricanes there were that year. A few. Hurricane Aaron. Go. Aaron was the third of a series of 4 interrupted track tropical cyclones during the 2001 Atlantic hurricane season. After reforming, it strengthened to a Category 3 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale just to the east of Bermuda. Aaron can be traced back to a tropical wave that emerged from Western Africa on August 30th. A series of shortwave troughs weakened the western portion of the Atlantic subtropical ridge. This caused the motion of the hurricane to turn towards the right with a decrease in forward speed on the 11th. Series of shortwave troughs weakened the western portion of the Atlantic subtropical ridge. Shortwave troughs weakened the west. Okay. This caused the motion of the hurricane to turn towards the right with a decrease in forward speed on the 11th. Aaron's head veered towards the east, northeast, and east on the 12th. Then a broad amplifying mid to upper level trough over eastern Canada accelerated Aaron towards the northeast. I wonder what caused the shortwave troughs. The series of shortwave troughs. Okay. Right before the tower fell, the hurricane started moving. You would need greater details for time frames between these 6 hour spans. But that's interesting. The hurricane went backwards right before 9/11. If this information is correct, 65.7, 65.9, and then we go backwards 65.6. This is on the longitudinal line, 65.1. 64.3. So 12, 7 o'clock, it started going, just a little before it started turning. Oh, why was that? Well, funny. If we take what we know about the hurricanes and the storms, they had to have been pulsing in such a way that they could draw it in or putting the beams on. But if they're bringing in a front, well, at some point it's got to cancel each other out. So, but this stops and goes backwards, and then 9/11 happens. Then the planes go into the building. Interesting. Taking note. So regarding 9/11 and radar, there was a radar loss on the morning of September 11th, 2001. The radar coverage of the United States airspace is nearly complete, in particular the northeastern area where all 4 hijackings took place on 9/11 has no gaps whatsoever in radar coverage. By Paul Schreier, Global Research, May 8, 2013. Nonetheless, there was radar loss on 9/11 with respect to the 3rd hijacked plane, American Airlines Flight 77, which was reported to have hit the Pentagon. American 77 took off at 8:20 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and was hijacked more than half an hour later. It began to change its course at 8:54, and while slowly turning to the left, its transponder was switched off at 8:56. Until then, it had been displayed on the radar scopes of air traffic control via the high-by radar site. This was a beacon-only site, meaning a site that could only display transponder signals. When American 77's transponder was turned off, the plane was no longer visible to high-by radar. It's in high-by radar, but then it's invisible. So they don't know where it's going, and it comes back through here. And the high-by radar didn't pick it up on top of that. Okay. So, nonetheless, the area was covered by additional radar sites. Several sites that were not beacon-only tracked American 77 after its transponder had been turned off. However, the plane was lost to controllers because of the way computers processed the radar data and because of an unexplained wide-ranging radar failure. An unexplained wide-ranging radar failure. And an unexplained wide-ranging radar failure. So there's more than just a couple buffoons who hijacked a couple of planes. Once again, our time has run out, and so we lay our story down with a recommendation that someone out there, perhaps one of you dear souls watching this, orders the Doppler radar loop nationwide images for the 24 hours surrounding 9/11 events and study them for any involvement there. And when we'll return, we'll continue not only our countdown of Doppler weaponized hurricanes, but commence our study of the term and phenomenon known as atmospheric rivers, also needing to get back to our accounting of Tesla's life to learn the secrets that have, today, put us in this world of hot water. To be continued.